Fragments of silicon, guaranteed not to be found inside chocolate wrappers as a promotional stunt.
I should bloody well hope not. I think we're officially labeled as a choking hazard.
Yeah, it was originally a golden ticket joke, but it wandered a bit as I was thinking about it.
That explains a bit. Anyway, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is the regular crew. Let's get to the news. Let's see. Petty, let's check in with you since, things are looming.
Yep. Just kind of been working to get the house somewhat clean. We just had to move furniture, which that was fun.
Such a quantification.
Yeah. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to be having surgery Tuesday. So that's why we're not going to be having a show next week.
Yeah. Mind you, we will still be having reviews on the Sundays. It's just, with everything that's going on with Petty Fan, there was no way we were going to be dealing with a guest.
Yeah. And hopefully I'm up and around well enough on crutches that we won't need to worry about backup streamer stuff, but we've already handled that if needed.
Yeah, we are prepared. So.
Yep.
And then it's just kind of, waiting for things with my Medicaid hearing and SSI to pan out, so that's fun.
A lot of fun in your life.
Yeah, it's super fun. Also, if this rain would frickin' stop. I'm pretty sure we're going on 40 days and 40 nights at this point.
I've had that experience a few months ago, Patty. It'll pan out.
As long as you're not having mudslides.
Well, I mean, the side of the yard where the people basically vandalized our property is starting to erode because they took out the retaining wall.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not.
Hmm.
So...
So did those people flee the county, or what?
It's been so rainy they couldn't do anything anyway. So, hopefully they haven't flooded the county.
No kidding.
And yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right. Twilight, why don't you go?
All right. Well, I finally busted out my fans since it's gotten hot enough for me to need to do that. And it's running right now, but I got far enough to where you can't hear it. At least I hope you can't. Let's see now. We've been cleaning out our shed, and we found a few things that we've been looking for. Some little figurines for the yard to decorate with and whatnot. Unfortunately, one of them broke, sadly. So now, what else? Oh yeah, my leather chair, the other side of it broke last night. And
Rest
now
in peace.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. No glue and duct tape's gonna help it this time. So I had to toss it out and bring in my old one. Maybe buying one that's about like $60-some, something like that. I have to wait and see.
Yeah.
What else? Not much else. I've just been playing games for review this week, and that's about it.
All right. Galix?
It's been getting warm here, too. It's not really warm enough to justify having much in the way of fans or air conditioning or anything, but it's still getting too warm for jackets and blankets at night, or heavier blankets, so I've been a little bit uncomfortable lately, but that's just the way it is around this time of year, I guess. Gaming wise, I saw a thing where Dead Cells is getting a new DLC thing soon, so I have been playing that again a little bit lately. And obviously still playing Splatoon 2 because there was a Splatfest just recently, and unfortunately Team Time Travel lost. Teleportation was more popular. I guess people like that are just, not patient enough to do time travel.
Right.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah. And I have somewhat learned how to broadcast stuff on Twitch as a backup for Petty Fan, although I definitely need to do it like 3 more times so I can remember the order to do things in. And also we were having some volume control issues that I'm not sure how to do anything about, so we'll see how that works.
Yeah. There are still some days ahead to tweak that, so so anything else?
Not really.
Okay, I guess it's my go. Oh, jeez. Honestly, I don't have much this week. Only because, my week's been really light because of, there's no prep. I haven't had to do any prep work for next week since Petty Fan's having a surgery. So, it's been a lot more playing of the games than, preparing guests and stuff, which is interesting. And just not a lot of news my way this week. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week are Gabriel and, hang on, lost my notes here. Okay, hate that. Awkward. Gabriel Langlois and Salaar Kohari of Cage Studios.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
Fine. Just wanted to make sure it didn't screw up your names.
Yeah, it's fine. Nice to meet you.
Indeed. Right, so how we like to start things off is getting to know the people behind the games, studios, what have you. And we like to begin that query by asking, what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
So we started off kind of in different ways. This is Salaar speaking right now. I started off making and playing a lot of video games from elementary school. Kind of became like a thing that I would do with my family at first, and then once I found out that I could actually make my own video games, then I started doing that a lot.
Yeah, for me, I was actually not allowed to play a ton of video games as a kid, so it was always something that, seemed really magical and out there for me, and it kind of made me love it all the more when I got to get my hands on something I wasn't exposed to as much as I would have loved to, of course, as a kid.
And what sorts of games did you build?
So I started making games a long time ago when I was 7 or 8 years old. So I would just make some really basic Flash games, Flash racing games, or turn-based fighting games, or open-world 2D platformers.
Yeah, I was always obsessed with basically Diablo clones or action RPGs. I made countless evolutions of that genre, starting at around the age of 12, and basically have just always been obsessed with the RPG, progression systems and the design and just how deep everything goes.
And I'm sensing that kind of informed future projects.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We've always wanted to work on larger and larger scale RPGs as we've, been more and more exposed to, how to actually develop the games. And, you always start small when you're young and you're learning, but, as you spend 5-10 years on it, it gives you the opportunity to do something bigger, which is something we've always wanted to do.
Yeah, we started making games together around 8 or 9 years ago. And we've been keeping that up ever since. And finally, we decided that we could go with a project that's bigger than something we've done before.
Right. And is like Sale and Sacrifice your first commercial game, or were there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And and I guess does that tie into the whole making a bigger and bigger game, putting it on Steam for sale?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the more players that play your game, the bigger your audience, the more it becomes worth it to keep creating and growing and scaling up what you've already done. So it's really important to us to reach as many people as possible to really make sure that this thing can fulfill its potential.
Yeah, and as we've been working on games together for so many years, we kind of have learned all the different parts of it, like from the technical to the design and animation and visuals, and all those different things are kind of coming together in our skill sets. And they as our skill sets kind of tend to synergize with each other, and so we try to cover more and more aspects. And now we're trying to go all in with on top of the game design skills. Obviously, in order to publish a successful indie game, you got to know all the marketing and business and everything else that could possibly go into it to make it a successful release.
Of course. And now, as far as working together, do you two are you in the same space, or are you like doing a remote thing?
We were doing a remote thing, but right now, actually, Gabriel's visiting me in Los Angeles, so we are here together in person.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's a great opportunity to get a lot done when we're in the same room.
Yeah, for special occasions like a game release or something.
No doubt. Right. So, digging into it, what is Sale and Sacrifice exactly?
Yeah, Sale and Sacrifice is an open world pirate RPG. It involves a narrative that lets you choose between three factions: the Spaniards, the pirates, and the natives. All the while you're exploring 25 islands, battling ships at sea, stealing boats, and just exploring the different unique landmarks that are placed everywhere throughout the world.
And now, is this based off of like historical pirates, or is this, complete fantasy?
We tried to kind of mix different aspects of history and fantasy. So we did study up and read a lot of literature on that kind of time period around the 18th century. So we looked heavily on the Spanish Inquisition, pirates and pirate stories of the time, and also even native cultures. And native cultures of the Americas in particular.
Yeah, but what's important is, we've kind of taken these historical, cultural, elements and really just put a twist of our own on everything to kind of create its own, unique feel for our type of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
And what made you want to do a pirate RPG in the first place?
So we started this project about 2.5 years ago, and back then there were no pirate games out, and
that were recent, basically.
Yeah, that were recent. So we saw a big hole in the market, and as we were developing the game, we saw things like Sea of Thieves and other games come out, which scared us a little bit. But we were kind of going for a different avenue, where Sea of Thieves is a big multiplayer, ship-focused game. We've got a lot of islands to explore, a single-player open-world narrative. So we think of it more of like Skyrim kind of genre.
Yeah, we really just wanted to create, a world that was not just another redundant, typical medieval fantasy like, every RPG that's come out for forever, really, in the video game space. And just kind of go in a new direction with it that we thought would be new and exciting. And, a lot, like Salaar said, a lot of other publishers and developers saw that same opportunity as we did, which really
took it on in different ways.
Yeah, it really helped us hone down what our personal vision was for the game through the competition as it arose.
Makes sense, especially with those are big teams. They are making big games. Admittedly, what I see on display here is pretty impressive for a two-man studio. Like, I'll be honest. I don't see a lot of small-time indie developers tackling like a full-on 3D, really anything, like let alone a open-world RPG. This must have been a very difficult undertaking.
It was very difficult, definitely. When we were starting out this project, I was me, Salaar speaking. I was more of a programmer, heavily focused on like development. Gabriel was much more of a designer, very focused on like how to make the game fun. And since then, we've like grown our skill sets a lot, merged. Like so, I've become more of a designer. Gabriel's become more of a programmer, and like kind of our technical expertise on top of our ability to like iterate on designs really quickly helped us out a lot. And obviously, of course, we had our Kickstarter campaign, which helped us buy art assets, which helped us not have to do all of that ourselves for the content creation side.
Yeah, there was a lot of curation of online marketplaces that we did prior to a Kickstarter campaign, and a lot of research went into scaling and scoping this product ahead of time. We didn't just keep growing and growing it. We started with an enormous map that we had to, from the get-go, figure out how we were going to fill this with interesting content, on a really huge scale. So we really challenged ourselves to learn a lot about Unreal Engine and its tools, and figure out the best way you can design around having a massive possibility space.
Like, so this is being built in Unreal?
Yes, Unreal Engine 4.
I don't know, I'm just so used to Unity being powered that it's kind of a surprise when anything else is mentioned. Even Unreal.
It's kind of a, yeah, sure, Unity is more popular since it's been around longer, but Unreal Engine we definitely think has more rendering capabilities and potential, especially for open world games, our type of genre. So like it's not that lightweight if you wanted to make something more like a mobile game, but for our situation it kind of works perfectly. It's got a lot of optimizations and a lot of good graphics things that we can take advantage of.
Duly noted. Now, what made you want to go the early access route?
Yeah, it was really important to us to grow this from the ground up with exposure and transparency. We definitely, we wanted to do the indie thing and share it with the world as much as possible, as early on as possible, so that they could see the progress that was occurring from day one. And that it really shows if you can go back and see some old trailers from a couple of years ago. It's absolutely bonkers the difference that it's made. And when I think that when people see that progress, it makes the product more meaningful in that regard, because they see the work that has been put into it and the effort that goes along with that.
Yeah, and even from early access until now, been about 6 months, we've made like tremendous progress in our development. And I'd even say that we might have gone into early access a little bit too early, given for the stage we were at, but it's a learning process, and I think we can recover from that. And going forward, we've created much better marketing strategies and those kinds of things for release.
Well, where would you say you stumbled in the early access phase?
Sure, I'd say that when we were in early access state, we still had a lot of bugs and some of the visual issues and things like that, and we thought that was kind of acceptable for early access games. But then I've noticed that over the years, the standard for early access games has actually gotten a lot higher, because now early access some games stay in early access indefinitely, and that kind of sets a standard of like early access games should basically be released games. So that's kind of something that we didn't really understand when we were going for that, and we were kind of okay with having more bugs, but people weren't really happy with that.
Yeah, we kind of gave ourselves too much wiggle room with polish early on, because we favored scale over the tightening every loose end, because we were going for something so big. It was hard to give a vertical slice of a game that was so immense in its original intent.
Right. And how much longer is the game slated to be in early access before it reads 1.0?
Less than 24 hours, actually. We were planning on releasing tomorrow.
Oh, neat. And what does 1.0 entail? Like, as in, is there going to be any post-launch supports outside of like bug fixes?
Yeah, to answer the second question, post-launch support for sure. I mean, we want to give the players the most polished product we can. And that involves taking feedback and acting upon it, and really just giving the players what they want.
We've been fixing like hundreds of bugs and really like figuring out what is the early process to make people like the game straight off the bat, not encountering these weird loading issues and things like that. Really fixing all of those nooks and crannies, and then after we release the game, we plan on patching it about once a week. During early access, we'd patch it every couple days, but we figured that people don't like to have to update the game every time they pick it up. So if we had weekly patches followed by like the update posts, then that would help people follow along with our development and really like appreciate the new features that we come out with.
Yeah, and another thing with 1.0 is there's going to be kind of the latter half of the story content that we've kind of been holding off on presenting for spoilers and things like that we want to save. So we have to save something for launch, right?
I suppose so. I mean, some developers do, some like all the content's there, but it's reached a polished enough state to be releasable.
Right.
Anyway, now as far as the game itself, what sort of character are you playing? Is it a avatar that you build yourself, or is it an actual named character with their own motivations and such?
It's kind of somewhere in between, I would say. We had originally a backstory that was fully fleshed out for this character, but we decided to take a little bit more of a conservative approach since this was an RPG and you kind of fill the role of this character and how he wants to interact with the world. We kind of wanted to make it a little bit less established what his background is. We're going for a character who happened to be like half native and half American, but this isn't necessarily obvious to players, and they kind of are like a little bit confused about what their origins might be, which also makes it feel like their decision to side with any faction isn't necessarily determined by what the character looks like. And then we have some personalization options, like different colored, different types of boats and flags and hats, but
yeah, all that sort of thing. I mean, it's the customization really comes from how you play, more so than pressing buttons to change how things look. It's really about your gameplay style, and how the AI reflects your decisions after you piss people off and that sort of thing.
Right. Now, in regards to the faction system, are there certain benefits to joining one over the other, or is it purely story?
Yeah, there's definitely gameplay benefits to it. Usually people are going to want to get a lot of crew members to help them fight in different battles and at sea and all those things. So you can recruit different members depending on if you help out factions. Like you can free some natives from a pirate control and then they can join your crew, or you can free some pirates that are captured by some Spaniards, and then they can end up joining your crew. And eventually it becomes easier to talk to and work with different people who you side with, and the people that you don't side with are going to end up being more aggressive towards you. And this ramps up and towards the climax at the end.
Yeah, it was really important for us that it be mutually exclusive, so that you can't just become the all-time best friend of every single person on the map. It's really about choosing which faction you align yourself with in terms of gameplay style and what you enjoy doing in the game.
Right. So conversely, can you make an enemy out of all of the factions?
Yes. If you kill everyone, you will certainly encounter a lot of hostiles afterwards.
That's good to know. Now, is there any sort of ship combats in the game?
Yeah, there's a huge part of our game is the naval combat. We put a lot of effort into making sure that the control system didn't just feel like a racing car or a motorboat, but really give it indirect sailing control to give you that fantasy of controlling a massive pirate boat. It's naval combat with cannons and broadsides, lining your shots up, as well as boarding them, reeling into other ships, jumping on their boat, and killing their captain, stealing their boat, taking their loot. and even convincing the survivors to join your crew.
And in terms of the world and the setting, is it all grounded, or is there any magic, supernatural beings, monsters, anything of that nature?
The elements of fantasy and magic are very subtle in this game, and work more towards a lore aspect that kind of explains the ancient origins of the culture, more so than having a direct effect on the gameplay. However, there are 3 magic artifacts in the game that kind of drive the story forward, and acquiring them becomes your main quest. So obtaining those artifacts does give you a few different abilities that are rooted in magic, but beyond that, everything else and how everyone else in the world reacts to you does not really involve that. It's more of a power fantasy that comes along with that.
I see. And in terms of combat, is it just like sword fighting, or do you get pistols?
We were considering having pistols, but we didn't think that it would really was out of state that we were ready to release it with that. So right now we have sword fighting, and that works in a way where it kind of it starts out easy and allows players to really become experts at it. And in that way, if you keep basically mashing the click button, for example, that's what maybe a beginner might do, then it still plays out some cool combo animations, and it might not necessarily be able to kill a lot of people at once, but if you have a crew, then that'll be able to suffice. And then if you wanted to take on a bigger ship or something when you didn't have enough crew members, then that would require you to be able to master your dodging skills and your parrying skills, which would allow you to disarm enemies and dodge their attacks more easily. So that'll allow you to stay longer and fight with even if you're outnumbered.
And are there any sorts of mini games in this RPG?
For mini games we kind of have like different puzzles throughout the world. So we have puzzles in native camps that are kind of these ancient temples where you have to light torches in certain orders and these kinds of things that allow you to unlock different treasures and artifacts.
So is there any X marks the spot here?
There are some treasure map riddles. We tried to stay away from that cliche. So we tend to go with more like written riddles and obscure pictures and
people
things
who
like
know
that.
about those things.
Now, do you have to deal with hunger and thirst?
No. We were considering having elements of survival, but it kind of worked contrary to how we wanted the game to feel, like really free and kind of do things at your own pace.
Not the worst thing in the world. Like, I granted, I know those things are those kind of things are super popular, but not every game needs them.
Right. Yeah, it kind of depends. It has to really cater to your type of game. It's not like you can just throw it into any game and it'll just become better, even though it is a popular thing nowadays.
I mean, I suppose along those lines, is there an actual crafting mechanic in this game?
There are resources that you can buy at marketplaces, and those can allow you to do things like upgrade your ships, like cannons and hull and things. They use different resources like wood and cotton. But you can't craft items. You can trade and purchase weapons for yourself and your crew members, but you can't like pick up raw materials and make something out of them directly.
See. And yeah, that sounds more like commodities than like stuff you.
Exactly. Yeah, more of like a stock market trading type deal.
Right. Like I've encountered other games that have done this. Like Sid Meier's Pirates comes to mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Are there any sea shanties?
Yes, we actually about half a year into making this game, both of us and some of our friends took a trip to a music studio and recorded our own shanties that we wrote and played ourselves. And those you'll encounter as you're sailing. Also on land, we have an original soundtrack of 15 different songs that have pirate themes, native themes, and Spanish themes, depending on where you are in the world.
And who composed the soundtrack?
So the shanties were written by us, and the rest of the soundtrack was written by our composer Robert Meier, who's based in Los Angeles.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, really awesome guy.
Let's see. Can you swim in this game? I know that sounds like an odd question to ask, but you know, there are games like this where you actually can't swim.
Oh yeah, we get that a lot. People are like, can you swim in this game? We're like, of course, yeah. So there's you can swim. It's slower than going on a boat, but when you swim, you can also dive, and underwater you can find shipwrecks, ships that you sunk yourself, ruins, and different things that you can dive for. So there's swimming mechanics as well as underwater mechanics, and underwater different wildlife and sea monsters and things you might be able to find.
And don't forget sharks. Always gotta have sharks.
Of course. Like, does a knockoff of the Jaws theme show up?
No.
No, that's a great idea.
Like, let me see. So how many islands are there in the game?
There's 25 islands. They're all handcrafted. And they vary in size. I'd say the smallest ones, you can walk across them in about maybe 5-10 minutes. The larger ones could take hours to really, fully
explore every inch of them.
Definitely. Up to 5 hours, I'd say, on the bigger islands.
That's quite a size. And what's up with I'm not sure what to call this, the parachute, the hang glider?
Yeah. There's a hang glider. You can actually customize that at the tailors and choose your flag. Have the pirate skull or the American flag from the 13 colonies back in the day, or things like that.
Does that serve a purpose?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of our level design includes verticality. So you can jump off of any cliff, mountain, climb up to the top of the volcano and jump off of it, and then you'll be gliding, all the way to where you're going. So the
problem is basically that, you climb to this top of this beautiful island that has this tall tower at the top, and you're up there and you're like, what do I do? Just climb all the way back down? Do I jump off and die? And we're like, if you have a glider, then you can jump off, and your reward for climbing to the top of this island isn't just a treasure up there. It's the fact that you get to glide all the way up to an adjacent island or back to your boat in order to sail to the next place and see what other mysteries are out there.
Right. So anyway, I'm going to see if my colleagues have any questions for you at this point in time.
I don't think I have anything.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't have too much, but it looks pretty neat. What are for the diving? Are you just free diving, or is there more technological solutions for that?
What do you mean by free diving?
Free diving is just diving without air supply of any sort, or.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, it's just free diving. We're a little bit generous with the air, but there are interactive bubbles on sinking ships and in in between coral and stuff in really deep places that can kind of help you. You can get air from going through the bubbles again. It's kind of also a matter of keeping an eye on your oxygen supply while interacting in different ways to manage that.
That makes sense. Just curious, because this looks reasonably realistic, so I was wondering if you were using diving helmets of any kind or anything, but I suppose there is a proud video game tradition of being able to breathe bubbles underwater, so.
Yep, it's fun, so we kept it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have any questions myself, but I'm interested in that there's a new pirate RPG coming out, so I'm definitely interested.
Right. Anyway, so in terms of pricing, this game is currently $19.99. Is that going to stay that price when it releases tomorrow?
Yeah, so it's going to be $19.99 on launch, and then in the future, depending on things that come up, we'll see if we go on sale or not, and to get into the hands of more people.
But tomorrow, yeah, we're going to be launching at $19.99.
Okay. And let me see, is this game only for Windows, or is it? Do you have Mac and Linux builds?
We currently only have a Windows build, but we intend on getting a Mac and Linux build, out at some point in the near future.
We've been investigating that, also looking into like Xbox and PS4 builds, but the process for making a Windows build is a lot easier than for the other things if that's what you're starting out with. So so we're going to release for Windows and then move it on from there and see what we can do.
And in terms of storefront, is this game only on Steam, or is it going to come to like say GOG or the Epic Games Store?
Currently, it's only on Steam. As for now, that's basically where we'll stay. If other opportunities arise in the future, we may consider them. But for now, it's Steam.
Okay. Right. So I think that's all I have as far as my questions go, and I think my crew's good. So, yeah, I'd like to thank you both for taking time out of your schedule and being here this week.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been fun. We're really excited to release this game tomorrow, and excited to see where it takes us.
People seem to be interested in it. Give them a comment in the chat. Anyway, the game is Sale and Sacrifice. It's currently available in early access. It will be released in a 1.0 state tomorrow, and it will be consistently priced at $19.99 USD. Be sure to pick it up today. Right, Petty, play us to the next segment.
Give me 1 second. I'm having some technical difficulties over here.
Right. Okay, is everyone still here?
Yeah, we're
I'm
here.
still here.
Okay. I guess Petty might be having problems. So, while he deals with that, moving awkwardly to the topic of discussion. Yeah, there we go. He's having issues. Live broadcasting. It's been a while since we've had a blowout like that, but it's always a risk. Every show, something can go wrong. And this is one of those times. Anyway, so topic of discussion. All right, so not something we really wanted to talk about, but it's been a pretty quiet week. I mean, yeah, I know Sony and Microsoft just announced that whole streaming deal, but, I don't really know what that entails. That could be an industry-shaking event. It could be, Microsoft is literally powering Sony's streaming plans. Like, apparently they're going to be doing that for Nintendo. That's what happens when you're a very, very large company. Sometimes your enemies are your allies.
It's almost like they're almost a computer monopoly and have had to deal with lawsuits to that effect multiple times.
This isn't talking about Windows. This is talking about cloud services.
I know.
There are competitors to cloud services.
Fair enough.
It's like, but that's neither here nor there. This week we're talking about the Epic Games Store again, because turns out running a store is hard. And running a sales promotion is apparently a lot harder than it looks. Yeah, we're talking about the Epic Mega Sale here. It's like, Epic Games last week decided to have their first major literal store-wide sale. Something, by the way, that they certain members of their brain trust had said that they weren't going to do. They thought sales would devalue games and yada yada yada. I'm like, I guess.
Yeah, kind of sometimes in people's perspectives.
It depends on. Well, it's like, that's the entire conceit behind the Epic Mega Sale. Do we have audio?
I am still getting audio.
Okay.
No, I mean, Twilight.
Yeah, we're still getting audio.
Okay.
You
I
guys
was
hear
talking
me?
about on the Twitch page.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I wasn't just going on the call. I listened. to
Yeah. Sorry. It just Petty is having some unspecified issues, and he doesn't know if he's getting audio.
I think it didn't like Sale and Sacrifice open, and a lot of things just started trying to crash on me.
Sometimes we have that with games.
Yeah, especially Unreal Engine.
Well, anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, the Epic Mega Sale was something that was going to be covered by Epic themselves. It's like, in addition to the discounts, there was the Epic Mega Credit, or whatever they were calling it. Like, you got $10 off of any game that was $15 or higher. Technically $14.99, but I'm like, so apparently they didn't tell their business partners that they were going to do this, or somewhere a wire got crossed. So, because when they said every game was getting discounted, they meant every game. That included things like Borderlands 3, which very quickly disappeared from the store, along with all of the Ubisoft games. Trying to think of the other one that vanished. Vampire the Masquerade 2. That one was especially pertinent because that's a multi-store release. That's going to be on GOG and Steam, day and date. So that was going to be an especially big problem for Paradox because you're either you're going to have people angry who bought the game over on the other storefronts that this thing went on sale over here. It's like there's a reason why price parity contracts exist. This is one of them. Mm-hmm. And it's like when they weren't going off the store entirely, games were raising their prices, like Hades and, if I'm recalling correctly, Satisfactory both had price increases to make sure, because once again, that feeds into the whole devaluation thing. That's
because in the eyes of some people and some of the people that are in charge of analyzing markets, games value is strongly based on how much people paid for them.
Right, and you also train the audience for sales and all that stuff. It's like basically there's a reason why it's usually the publisher that sets the sales, not the platform holder.
Or at least gets input and says, no, we'd rather not take part in this sale, rather than the company saying, the store holder saying, we're going to put everything on sale and it's okay because we'll pay for it.
Yeah, because as it turns out, other stores pay for discounts. Valve did this not just a few months ago, not their entire store. That's never going to happen because
it's too big.
Because Steam is big enough that's impossible. Because Epic Games Store isn't yet.
Yeah, Epic Games is 50 games at most. They're small enough where they can do the store-wide sale. I mean, I think even like GOG or any store that's been around for a good long while isn't going to be able to pull this off. And this has been compounded by the latest controversy. That is, if you buy too many games too quickly, you get fraud prevention triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing I've been hammering home about this Epic Games Store is it released at least a year too soon. Like, they don't have basic functionality. You know what stops that from happening? A fucking shopping cart.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And a shopping cart it's on their fucking roadmap, like, in the distance.
That's one of those things that should be there on, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure Amazon, like, friggin' launched with that.
Podunk online stores have shopping carts. This is basic shit. It's pure amateur hour.
And as an added bonus, if you have a shopping cart, then accounts don't get banned either by their credit services or by the store itself for making a lot of purchases in a short period of time.
Well, no, what's happening is their credit services are back-charging them, and most storefronts, it's an immediate ban.
Point of order is, this is why shopping carts exist, so you can avoid this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, an Epic game knows this because they have a shopping cart on the Unreal Engine store. It's like, this is 101. This just should not have ever been a thing.
This is less than 101. This is more like pre-college, testing.
Yeah. Once again, the point is, I understand they're new to this store game in terms of being a Steam knockoff, but you're Epic Games. You're not exactly bereft of resources. It's like, this shit shouldn't have happened. This store should not be in a state where it's triggering fraud prevention because it doesn't have the basics of an online store. Like, god damn. I think that's what really gets me about the Epic Games Store. Why they infuriate me. If it's not the incompetence, it's the arrogance that's been on display. It's the whole, Steam does this, how hard could it be? We're totally going to take over their territory, in the near future or whatever. It's like, but it's like, and they've just been, hitting things ass backwards time and time again. Now, I honestly feel embarrassed for them. And sure, they'll recover from this. This isn't some huge world-ending PR, but it speaks to a larger problem of, they don't have their shit together. Now, between their store lacking basic features and general inexperience, they really look like a Mickey Mouse operation. And that's just incredible from a company that clearly has a lot of resources and money. But it's like they're not exactly going to the right places. Hopefully, this shit will okay, hopefully they learned the hard way that, maybe you should clue developers in on your sale and see if they want to be a part of it. And, really get some functionality in this thing. Like, shopping cart. A fucking shopping cart. That still floors me.
They know they exist. They're in Fortnite.
Yeah, it's like one of the most basic aspects of an online store isn't there. Fuck's sakes, Epic, get your act together. All right, I think we're done with this. Anyway, that's our. That will be it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Let's see, the week ahead. Let's see. Friday, we have a multiplayer session. We'll be featuring Blood Fresh Supply. The recently released remaster. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. Of the classic FPS Blood. We talked about this back in December. Back with the old version that had the terrible mouse look. I'm pleased to report that this game works like a charm in that regard. I know it was having some other problems. Actually didn't watch that Civi problem, but I believe they've been fixed with the recent patch. Anyway, we're going to be showcasing the multiplayer component of that. It's going to be me, Petty Fan, and Twilight. And indeed, coming up on the Sunday reviews, we will be reviewing, Blood Fresh Supply and the Cuboid Keeper, which is a twin-stick shooter that sadly I haven't had a lot of time to play with because Blood is a 90s FPS with all of the content in it. So it's 6 episodes. And some of these levels take like a good 45 minutes to get through. I played quite a bit of Blood back in the day, but it's been decades, so it's like the memory is rusty on some stuff, or I just didn't play some of the later episodes. Anyway, that'll about do it. Until Friday, I wish you good gaming.